Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of Humanitarian Horizons. Christina DiArcangelo, Unveiled. And today I have a tremendous guest on to talk with me. I will introduce him to you, and he will give you a little bit of a background, and then we're just going to get into the topic at hand. Welcome, Damon. It's such a pleasure to have you
Thank
on today.
thank you for having me.
You want to tell everyone a little bit about yourself and your background?
Well, I went into the military when I was 18 years old. This was before September 11th. So September 11th happened when I was in boot camp. So I joined the Army in August 14th, 2001. So September 11th happened when I was in boot camp. So that's just changed up the whole game. From there, I went to Iraq. This was an experience. So, got PTSD from that, but it was just an overall, just interesting experience. But I was glad to serve my country, but just didn't expect the things that happened following that.
So you're retired now. So you're a veteran, you're not active anymore, correct?
Correct.
Okay, great. I just wanted our listeners and viewers to understand that you are now a veteran. And one of the things that you and I were talking about privately, we had the opportunity to be in a social setting, and that's when I met you. We were talking about your work as it relates to other veterans that also have PTSD. And from everyone that knows me and follows me, they understand that I have a high focus on mental health, but also to help veterans because my companies on the biotech and the AI tech side, we work very closely with veterans. We have some ex-generals that actually we have the privilege of working with today, whether it's clinical studies or it's technology wise. And one of our major focuses has been on PTSD because there really isn't a lot out there medically for patients, regardless of what type of patients there are, to take something that's effective with PTSD. In this incidence where you all served our country, the United States, and you come back from being active and seeing all the horrific things that you'd seen and the exposure to all these things, you come back, and of course, you're going to be triggered and diagnosed with PTSD. Who wouldn't be being in those types of situations? How do you think we could do better as it relates to assisting veterans with PTSD?
Well, first we have to understand that these veterans need assistance as soon as they come back home. When I came back from Iraq, it was basically like, okay, go out in the world. There was no conversation. It was no like counseling or anything. It was basically like, yeah, you're back home now and you could just go out in the world. And it's like we didn't really understand, like we were trying to get adjusted still. And that's why you had people who had, problems adjusting with their spouses and, just public settings and stuff because it's like, oh, we're in the army, we're in the military, you're strong, just get over it. And we just can't get over it. It's like it should still be some type of counseling. Like if we haven't learned from Vietnam when all those soldiers came back, and they were just like it was something going on. It's just a responsibility just to give soldiers counseling, just to talk to them and just see what's going on in their head because everybody deals with this different. Some people are completely fine, and then some people get arrested for doing some dumb stuff. So we just need to talk to veterans to really truly understand what's going on and just
Well,
not brush it off to the side. And that's something that's not happening. It's still not happening now.
right. And if we just look at what's happened, I'm not trying to make this a political discussion, but what happened in the beginning of the new year with the gentleman that blew up his truck in front of Trump Towers in Vegas, he had PTSD. He was
Right.
diagnosed with PTSD. Now, I don't want to get into the whole like what the heck happened, who was involved, why did he do what he did. He clearly had sent a slew of text messages to people that he had been connected to, whether or not he was actively dating these women and all these other people that he was friends with, but he was letting them know that there was something wrong, right? There was a problem. And what he did as a result of his PTSD is what we need to stop. We don't want people dying, especially people who have worked so hard and tirelessly for our country. We owe you all, you and everyone else, the chance to get better because you don't have the proper program, even with the VA, right? The VA, you guys that's where you have to go to see your doctor and they give you what they give you. whatever it is that they have, right? So there's not a full understanding even on how to treat you guys medically.
Right, absolutely. When I first got back and I was talking to my assigned therapist, it's like I had to cut off two of them because they weren't helpful. As soon as you get into the meetings, it's like, all right, well, tell me about the bad stuff that happened, overseas. Tell me about the nightmares. Like you're not like really sensitive towards the subject. As soon as I get in here, you want me to tell you about all the fucked up shit that happened instead of
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
that's.
because it's dramatic.
Yeah, and it's like I don't want to relive that. So, I mean, you just have to find your own sources. Maybe it be a family member, maybe it be a friend, maybe it be other veterans, as far as that source, of really talking about it.
There, and that's very sad, is that that's what they go into immediately. Instead of saying, listen, I'm not a therapist, I'm not a psychiatrist, I'm not any of those things. But, as a patient advocate and a clinical researcher, that's worked in mental health, clinical studies and things, I consistently coach the clinical trial sites and people in general, that you talk to the patients, because you're a patient when you're in therapy, right? You talk to them about what the triggers are, not about what happened. You'll get to what happened as they start to become more, correct me if I'm wrong, as they become more comfortable with you. But you just
Absolutely.
listen. I have PTSD too, and I was not in the armed services. I unfortunately have it as a result of abuse. So I understand PTSD. I was not in battle, but I know that I have certain triggers, and I've been able to work through a lot of things because of it. But one of the things I do, which is frowned upon in the armed forces, is cannabinoids. I take THC. I have a Pennsylvania card to be able to have medical cannabis. I do not call it medical marijuana, even though that's what they call it in our state, a medical marijuana. I think it's nonsense. It's medical cannabis. It's a cannabinoid. That's what we should be calling it scientifically. But I take that. And if I have, and I've had things trigger me, um, especially when I was dealing with my mom's stuff, the crime, we talked a little bit about that before we got on. That was really bad to try to deal with that. And then I have PTSD on top of it, and there's an abuse situation going on. I had a hard time getting through it, but I was lucky enough that I had cannabinoids that I could take medicinally. I'm allowed to take it. But on the VA side, there's still, it's CBD, but even CBD, they're kind of iffy about. And it has to be a hemp-based CBD product. So that means 0.03% or less of THC, which in my opinion doesn't really do a whole hell of a lot for
We'll
people,
do nothing. Yeah.
right? So I think there's a call to action also for the VA. And luckily we have new administration, as we know. We talked about that a little bit before we came on. And when we met, we have our new administration. They're bringing in new people. I'm hoping that some of these issues that veterans suffer from, both VA, DOD, active, they have access to proper medicine so that he can feel better.
Well, I mean, with that subject, that's kind of like iffy because I understand exactly what you're saying because I know a lot of veterans and a lot of people who take that and it calms them down. But now you're talking because this whole weed thing, you got to realize they just made weed legal not too long ago, or marijuana
Right.
legal not too long ago in certain states. And now you're talking about giving veterans free marijuana. Some people might abuse that. A lot of people might abuse that. So there's like a whole red tape with that whole thing to where it's like, giving these veterans a drug because marijuana isn't legal everywhere. I still
Well,
think,
and it's a federal Schedule 1. So state level, we're allowed to have it in certain states, to your point. So Pennsylvania, we're both in the Commonwealth. We're allowed to have it. I think our program started in 2016, if I'm not mistaken. I could be off by a couple of years, but I apologize. But
I get you.
our program's new, but because you're federal, VA is federal, right? That's
Right.
federal. It's governmental. Medical cannabis is a Schedule 1. So it's federally not allowed. So you have the federal issues, but to your point, then you have state level approvals, right? And so then the vets aren't sure. I've talked to a lot of them through my nonprofit, my advocacy firm. They're not sure what to do because they don't want to violate their federal benefits you get from the VA by taking something that they're allowed to take right? That's approved in the state.
That goes with a lot of people. Like I know a police officer who went to like Colorado and like was able to, smoke, and then when he came back, he failed a piss test. And it's just like, well, it was legal out there, but in Pennsylvania, like, that's where it gets like complicated.
Yeah.
So I mean,
Yes,
I'm not smart enough to really argue something like that because like everybody has their point, but you get what I'm saying to where
I
it's
get
not
you.
legal across the board.
Exactly. And so, of course, you're going to be nervous about it. Who's going to sign up for something? First off, you were in the military. You were told to follow commands, and whatever orders they told you, you followed it, right? You're not going to sit here
Yeah.
and argue. That's not what you're supposed to be doing. So, why would you argue the law, right, when something feels odd to you, right? Because
Yeah.
there is a definite problem because there's state versus fed. Fed supersedes state. So state goes to the bottom. So I'm bringing this up only because you guys come into that playground, if you will, wherein you don't have proper support there either, because federally it's not approved.
Yeah, well, as you know, this world that we live in is kind of like, it's very interesting, and
It
just
is.
but when it comes to like just PTSD, you just have to find whatever help that you can, just
Yeah.
to try to get through it and just to talk to people, you
Yes. And
know.
don't isolate. I think what I'm hearing you say is it's better to talk about it with people that you trust. Find other avenues to help you feel better through these things. And when the triggers happen, you've got to work through them the best way you can. But you've got to let someone know that this is happening so that we don't have surprises like what happened to that poor guy in Vegas. I mean, that was horrific what happened to that poor man. And there's so many more people that have died by suicide because of PTSD, and they were in our armed services.
One thing I like to say is that as the man, nobody cares about the man. Nobody cares about our feelings sometimes. And like men do have feelings. And then when we express them sometimes, people think that it's weak. But the thing is that mental health is very important to me. So you have to be able to express your feelings in a certain way, just to say like, yeah, this is bothering me. This is messed up. So it doesn't make you weak that you're expressing feelings. It's like, yo, I just need to talk about it. But that's why I say that's safe zone. Like now you have groups I've seen on Instagram where it's like you have groups of men. It's a safe space to where it's like you can express what's going on with you because people go through a whole lot of stuff, male, female, and you have to have that safe space to where you can be able to talk about it. And maybe sometimes you can't talk about it with like your beer buddies or like your club buddies, because you talk and it's like they really don't understand, or they're going to talk, or you talk to them and they, tell the rest of the people in the group.
Yeah.
That's why I say it's like it's a safe space that you have to find with somebody. And it's like it really comes with just planting that seed saying that, yeah, I do want to talk to somebody, and I feel like God will somehow, put that person into your life or put that into the universe. So it doesn't make you weak that you're expressing yourself. It makes you weak that you don't want to express yourself.
Right.
But it's just all about how you do it.
Well, I mean, look how we met. It was very random.
Yeah. But the thing is,
Right?
we were around a bunch of friends and colleagues. It was like the energy was good to where we can we could talk, and it wasn't nothing negative, and we just met each other
Right.
that night. So
Right. But I feel like there was a higher power. I always think when I meet people,
absolutely.
um, I always feel like there's a higher power involved, whatever it is. You said God, so I'm glad you did, because then I could say God too.
Mhm.
Because I try to be careful, politically of how I say things, but I'm obviously a religious person. And so I believe that God puts people in your path for a purpose. And I believe that I think one of the reasons why we met was so that we could talk about this and we could talk
Absolutely.
about a lot of other things, because there's a lot of things that you and I have in common that we can talk about so that we can help other people.
Right.
So I think we're going to have to end for now. Yeah, that was
Okay.
good timing.
But that was a good conversation. Hopefully, here's the thing about talking. Like, you could reach 100 people, but it's like if two people out of 100 actually get what you're saying, then you did your job. So,
Absolutely. And can I ask you, and I'm sorry, I don't mean to put you on the spot, but I think I have a gut feeling I know the answer already. If we're obvious when I post the podcast after it goes through production, I obviously will tag you so that you can share it, etc. But if people would like to reach out to you, perhaps that are other veterans that would like to talk with you, are you open to that if they send you a DM?
yeah, I'm open to it, and I've always been open to it. And it's like when I meet people going out who served in the Air Force or Marines, just like that connection to where it's like we see each other, and it's like we could kind of bond and talk about certain things that only we understand about.
Okay, great. Well, thank you. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to put you on the spot.
No, you're okay.
I just felt like I could ask you that. I could tell that you want to help people. So thank you so much for joining me today and to talk about this. This is a tough topic. This isn't something like we're talking about the weather outside, which although our weather sucks in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania right now, it's easier to talk about the weather than it is to talk about topics like this. And I just want to thank you for your candidness and all that you do to help others.
Not a problem. I'm here to help, and I'll look forward to doing it again sometime.
Okay, awesome. Well, with that, this was Humanitarian Horizons, Christina DiArcangelo Unveiled. Look to follow us. You know how to find us. Talk to y'all soon. Bye-bye for now.